Okay, so نبدأ. We'll begin. Okay, so it's been 2 weeks now since we've started this article, الغد. To summarize, up to this point, he's still talking about the fact that the human being does not know what's going to happen in the future. And then he gave some descriptions and comparing the concept of tomorrow or the concept of future to something that I guess we can understand. So last week we stopped in this paragraph where he was comparing tomorrow, the concept of future, almost like a ghost-like figure, where it just appears, it just shows itself very, very quickly from a far place, and you're not too sure, is this something good or is this something bad, right? So that's why he says فَرُبَّمَا كَانَ مَلَكًا رَحِيمًا. Maybe it is a merciful angel, or maybe رُبَّمَا كَانَ شَيْطَانًا رَجِيمًا, or maybe it was a cursed Satan. So maybe tomorrow or the future could be good. It could come up with good news, or it could come up with difficulties. He goes further and he says maybe it's like a black cloud. Maybe tomorrow appears to be full of good news, right? And I mentioned last week that dark clouds in Arabic literature is a sign of good news, because rain was very precious, especially in places like Egypt, some of the Middle Eastern countries, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. So rain was always seen as a blessing. So a dark cloud was always a sign of good news. There's rain and the ground gets nourishment and so on. He says, however, sometimes you think everything is good, like when you see a dark cloud, you think it's good news, but then there's a cold breeze that blows upon it. إذا هبت عليها ريح باردة. So a cold wind blows, habbat, upon it, عليها, right? So when a cold wind blows upon it, حللت, so this is فعل فاعل and مفعول به. حللت أجزاءها, it dispersed its parts. وفرقت ذراتها, and it split its ذرات. We discussed it as atoms, or the smallest particle. So this is where we stopped. All right. So this is where we stopped. So once again, you have a dark cloud. You think everything is good. It looks well. In other words, let's say you're planning and everything's going fine, and then suddenly, just like this black cloud where you think it's going to rain heavily, a wind comes, a cold wind comes, disperses it, splits its atoms apart. Basically, it just distributes it. And then he says, فَأَصْبَحَتْ. Okay, so this word أصبح is an important word because it's very common in the language. It means to become. Okay, أصبح يصبح is form number 4. It means to become. Form number 4. So what is being referred to here? So we have the fa'il, which is she or it, but what is it referring to? And why it's feminine? فأصبحت. The wind. That's correct, right? And the wind, and the rih is feminine. Rih is feminine. It doesn't have a sign of femininity, but it's saba'i, right? It's been used as a feminine word. So فأصبحت, so it became. In other words, the wind, right? Or Actually, maybe not the wind, maybe the cloud. It makes more sense. Okay, and then we'll see why, because when we read it. So let's say either rih or either cloud. They are options, right? So from a grammar point of view, it could be referring to either one of them. So now we look at the context. فأصبح, so it became كأنما, right? So كأنما is as if. كأنما, it means it's as if. So it's a word of comparison when you're comparing two things, right? Very common in the language. كأنما. It's really this word كأن. كأن, this word كأن. This word is used as a comparison. So we can say كأنه, which means as if he. كأنها, as if she. Right? كأنما. And the ma here is like as if it's yeah, I mean overall it just means once again as if, and then the ma is like an ism mawsul in this case. Ka is for like to, yeah. So ka is for like as well. Right? We can say al-waladu I don't know, kal asad. Right? The boy is like the lion, very fast. So ka, ka'anna, ka'annama, these are all what we call alatu tashbih. They're tools of comparison, right? So ka'anna, ka'annama, they all have the meaning of as if. Okay. Yes, there is a shadda. So ka'anna, ka'annama. So there's a shadda on the nun. Okay. So just note that ka'anna, ka'annama, and ka, they are all alatu tashbih, tools of comparing or comparison. These alatu tashbih are used a lot in this text, and the reason is because when a person writes, when a person is a deep writer, they will always compare abstract concepts to reality, right? They will compare abstract concepts and they will compare it to situations that happen in our life so we can understand. But this is a very common way when someone writes high-level language. So you can expect to see these very frequently. كأن, كأنما, ka, right? So فأصبحت كأنما. So it became as if كأنما. And then here we have a جملة اسمية. هي عدم, right? And here once again is it. We haven't really decided what it refers to. كأنما هي عدم. Now عدم, you have a look at your vocab list. So Adam, so here we have Adam, right? Non-existence. Sorry, I can't highlight at this stage, but non-existence. Adam is non-existence. This is a very used word in theological texts. Okay, when you read theological texts, aqidah texts, you will see there's Adam being talked about all the time. You know, existence and non-existence. The plural is Adam, right? The plural is Adam. So he is saying here, فَأَصْبَحَ, so it became as if it is. This is a bit hard to so I'll try to translate it literally first, and you will understand the point. So it became as if it is a non-existent thing from things that are non-existent, right? So عدم من الأعدام is literally saying, you know, non-existence out of any non-existent thing, right? So عدم من الأعدام is like a non-existent thing from out of all non-existent things. So basically saying it doesn't exist, right? التي is an ism mawsul and is describing Adam. So Adam is non-existent things, and not only that, التي لم يسبقها وجود. So every time you have lam, you have to look if you have a fi'l mudari after it, because it causes jazm, right? So this verb is سبق يسبق, which means to precede something. يسبقها, so there's a sukoon on the qaf. It's like lam yasma'ha, right? Lam yaftahha, for example. Lam yansurha, right? So this sukoon is because of the harfu jazm, because of lam. Now, wujud means existence. Wujud is the jama', is the aks, is the opposite of Adam. You might want to take a note of that. So Adam is non-existence. Wujud is existence. Okay, they're opposite. So what is he trying to say? What is he trying to say here? So he is saying, okay, before I get into that, lam yasbiqha wujud literally means existence did not precede it. I think I have this also in the vocab list, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Lam yasbiqha wujud. So the literal meaning is existence did not precede it, but the meaning is it did not even exist. Right? It did not even exist. So he's saying here, so this cloud, and I think it refers to cloud, it makes more sense for it to be cloud. So فَأَصْبَحَ, so it became as if it is non-existent, right? Non-existent to the point where this non-existent did not even exist before. It's a very exaggerated way of saying it didn't exist whatsoever, right? You thought it existed, but then it just disappears so quickly that it's as if it didn't even exist whatsoever. It's utterly and completely non-existent, right? And I think we can all understand this in our lives as well. You know, suddenly at one point in time, something could be in a flashlight just taken away, or a plan could change, or you thought, you know, something would happen. You were very certain that an event would occur in your life, and all of a sudden, in a flashlight, it just disappears, right? And this is what he's trying to say. So you see this cloud, this dark cloud, you think it's bringing rain, and then, you know, this wind comes upon it, completely scatters it away, and then you just look at the sky. Do you see any remnants or remains of the cloud? Nothing, right? And if you live in Melbourne, you see this more often. Once it could be very cloudy, and then the next hour the sky is crystal clear blue. It's as if the clouds didn't even exist an hour ago, right? And there are no remnants of the cloud whatsoever. So I hope that was clear. So once again, there's a lot of comparison, like I said. So Adam is an important word, especially when you talk about theological issues. It's used a lot in those sorts of books. But it's also used sometimes in love songs and love poetry. You know, existence and non-existence is very important, because the lover will say, I can't exist without you, right? For me, life is non-existent. So you will come across these sorts of usages of the word. Is that clear, everyone? Tamam. The sentence structures are not that difficult, I realized. Like the grammar is very straightforward in the text. It's the vocab and the meaning that you derive. That's I think the more challenging part, because I think the grammar is more or less, you guys are pretty familiar with most of the concepts. But let's see. So here this word has appeared many times. So now even if you don't have harakat or vowels in the text, you know that this is al-ghad, right? But the only thing is that you're not sure what the ending is. So because this word is in the beginning of a sentence, what do you think these two words look like? How would you do the i'rab of it? So this is al-ghad and this is bahar. So I'll tell you that much. Bahar is like an ocean. The jumla is ismiya, isn't it? It begins with an ism. It's also definite. It's ma'rifa. And then the next word is indefinite because there's no alif lam. So this is a clear jumla ismiya. Right? Al-ghadu bahrun. Al-ghadu bahrun. So he says tomorrow is an ocean. Have I given the meaning of bahr here? Okay, I haven't. Okay, so maybe take note of that. So al-ghadu bahrun is a sea. Let's put this in as number 3. Is an ocean or sea. Bahrun. Bahr is a very obviously a very frequently used vocab. Okay, bahr. Al-ghadu bahrun. So tomorrow is so when someone says tomorrow is an ocean, what they really mean is that they're comparing it once again, right? Another way of saying this could be al-ghadu kal bahri, right? Tomorrow is like an ocean. So that's really what the intended meaning is. But sometimes, this is a usage in language where you say that something is literally something to the point that you're trying to make is that it's almost as if it's exactly has the same attributes, right? Sometimes, for example, in football they say, oh, this player is a machine, right? This player is a machine. It's a very slang way of saying the guy works really, really hard in sports, right? He is like a machine, a non-stop machine. So this is common in the language where you say something is something directly, but really you're comparing it. It's a tashbih. It's a comparison. Okay. So al-ghadu bahrun. Tomorrow is an ocean. In other words, it's like an ocean. And then this word is new. Khidammun. Okay, khidammun. So khidammun is, have I included in here once again? Yeah, wide. Okay, wide. The more common vocab you will hear of wide is wasi'. Yeah, I'll put this as number 4. Is wasi'. You would have probably come across this in your notes as well. Right, wasi' means wide. Khidam is another word for wasi'. Right, and sometimes the author, because it's a high-level text, he chooses words that are not sometimes commonly used, or he uses the synonyms of words. Okay, sometimes that happens as well. Does ka function like be for definite noun? It takes the article in full. Do you mean in writing? Yes, it does. So for example, if I say al-ghadu kal-bahr, I will write it like this. Al-ghadu kal-bahr. Oh, this should be other way around. So it does actually have the alif. If I say kashams, like the sun. So that's how it will look like. But with the ba, it will also look like that as well, bisham. So they connect to the letter before them. Yep. So al-bahru, al-ghadu bahrun. Tomorrow is an ocean. Khidammun, wasi'. It's wide, right? Zakhir. Now this is, what kind of a, sorry, I think someone said, is it masdar? Yeah, it would be masdar. It sounds like a masdar. It's a sifa description. So khidam is wasi', right? It means wide. And then zakhir. What does zakhir sound like in terms of its morphology? Without looking at the meaning for now. Zakhir. It's ism fa'al, right? So this is something that if you don't have harakat, this format could either be ism fa'il or it could be form 3, like Gulnaz was saying. But this is not form 3. This is the fa'il of form 1, right? Zakhir. It could be like qatala, right? It could be qatala as well. But it doesn't make sense in the context for us to have a verb here. It could, so you just have to look at which one is suitable, right? Al-ghadu bahrun khidammun zakhirun. Zakhirun, another more common word for this is mamlu. Okay, and I think mamlu will come up soon as well on its own, which means it's mamlu is like filled, it's full. Okay, mamlu means, usually we use this, we say mamlu bil asrar, right? Mamlu bil asrar means full of secret. So here he is saying that tomorrow is like an ocean. It's wide and full. Right? Here, in other words, full of water. It's full of so many things. You know, waves, pearls, fishes, and animals, and sand, and it's just so much. It's huge. It's almost you cannot comprehend it, right? And it's very deep as well. The ocean is very, very deep. So there's so much unknown. I think that's the point that he's trying to make. يَعُبُّ عُبَابُ. Okay, so this is a fi'l and a fa'il. يَعُبُّ عُبَابُ. Okay, this is, here it's saying عُبَاب is waves. This means waves. And يَعُبُّ means يَرْتَفِعُ. It means rises. So it's waves, rises. And I think I should have it here as well. Yeah, يَعُبُّ عُبَابُ, meaning its waves rise. Okay, its waves rise. He could have used a much simpler language, but once again, in a day-to-day language, you will probably not hear this, right? But you will see it in texts. You will see it in text. Just like in English, we have so many things that we write that we don't necessarily speak it on a day-to-day basis. So يَعُبُّ عُبَابُ, its waves rise. وَتَسْتَخِبُ, this is more common. تَسْتَخِبُ. Which bab do you think this belongs to? تَسْتَخِبُ, استخب, يَسْتَخِبُ. Yeah, it's form number 8, but the ta is missing, right? So there's some idgham happening here. So this is an irregular form of form number 8, because form number 8, one of its requirements is to have a ta, right? But here the ta changed to a sad, and this is because ta and ta are so similar in pronunciation. If you try to put them next to each other, it's a tongue twister. If you say it ta, it's difficult, right? So it changes to a sad. Istakhaba. Anyway, the point is that this is form number 8. Istakhaba yastakhibu. This is a common word, and this means crash. Crash, right? وَتَسْتَخِبُ أَمْوَاجُ. Amwaj is a more common word for waves than ubab. And I've noticed something about this author, which I find quite smart, I think, is that sometimes, not always, but most of the time, when he brings something very difficult, like a difficult language, he follows it with a similar meaning, but using the more common words. And I think that's really brilliant for an author to do, right? So he brings the high level language, or the language that's not used, or perhaps it's more used in books. And then after that, he brings another similar, maybe not 100% meaning, but similar meaning, using more commonly used words. So يَعُبُّ عُبَابُ is complex in the sense that it's not really used on a day-to-day basis. But then تَسْتَخِبُ أَمْوَاجُ, this is what you will read and hear more, right? تَسْتَخِبُ means crash, and أمواج means waves. And amwaj is used in the Quran a fair bit as well. So amwaj means waves, right? The singular form is mawj. Mawj means wave. In Arabic poetry, this is also used a lot. They say waves of sorrow, waves of sadness. It's a common word. So istakhaba yastakhibu means to crash, and amwaj is wave. So amwajuhu, its wave, right? Its waves crash. In other words, crash into each other, right? Crash into each other. Okay, so up to this point, he's telling us that tomorrow is like an ocean, right? It's so wide and it's full of things. Its waves rise up. Its waves rise, and then and the waves also crash to each other. All right, so it looks fearsome as well. So what is the point of what is he trying to say? So now he's making his point. He says, فَمَا يُدْرِيكَ. Okay, so أَدْرَى يُدْرِيكَ. أَدْرَى يُدْرِي means to know something, to comprehend something. Right? أَدْرَى يُدْرِي. I'll write it down here. What form does it belong to? أَدْرَى يُدْرِي. Adra Yudri is form number 4, like Akrama Yukrimu, but there is a degree of irregularity to it, right? So the ending, for example, doesn't have a vowel. So Adra Yudri is Akrama Yukrimu. Now, Fama Yudrika, this is very common in the Quran as well. For example, Surah Haqqa, for those who know, Al-Haqqa, Mal-Haqqa, Wama Adraka Mal-Haqqa. Right? Ma adraka. So fama yudrika is it's trying to say, okay, so the literal meaning is, what will make you know? Ma yudrika. Adra yudri means to comprehend something. Ma yudrika is, what will you comprehend? Or what is it that will make you comprehend? Right? But the meaning is more important than the literal, because when you say fama yudrika, it's basically saying you will not know. How will you know? There's no way to know, right? Or there will be a difficulty for you to know, to comprehend. Fama yudrika, and how will you comprehend? Right? How will you know? Or will you know? Right? Fama yudrika. In kana. What does in mean again? So in, I think one of you said two. In can have the meaning of two in some cases.
حرف
In
شرط.
حرف الشرط, yeah. Inna is obviously indeed, we know that, right? And like you said, in is also a harf shart, which is if or when. It's a particle of condition. So if this happens, then this happens, or when this happens, then that happens. All right. So in this context, where are we? Yeah. Here we can't really say it will be inna, because inna kana indeed was. It doesn't really come together. It doesn't really make sense, right? To have the meaning of two as well, it's not very clear here. And how will you know? فَمَا يُدْرِيكَ, two was, right? Doesn't really connect. So this has to be the one that refers to if or when, right? We know this is kana. This verb, the next one, حَمَلَ يَحْمِلُ, which is from ضَرَبَ يَضْرِبُ, means to carry. You may have come across this before. To carry. So حَمَلَ يَحْمِلُ. فَمَا يُدْرِيكَ إِنْ كَانَ يَحْمِلُ في جوفه. Okay. I'll come there in a minute, but يحمل means to carry. What is the fa'il here? The fa'il is obviously huwa, because there's nothing after it. But what is it referring to?
حامل.
What is it referring to?
حامل.
Yeah, but what's the thing that's carrying? It's the wave, isn't it? The wave, or maybe the ocean, right? These waves, the ocean. You're not really sure what it's carrying. The mawj, right? But let's see. وما يدريك إن كان يحمل في جوفه. Now جوف is so جوف, and it's جوفه because of حرف الجر. جوفه. This means inside, right? Another common word for it is داخل. داخل is inside. فما يدريك إن كان يحمل في جوفه. In the Quran, this is used as I forgot the Arabic, but there's a verse that talks about that inside a person he cannot or she cannot have two hearts, right? Something like that. So it's a common word, jawf, right? Inside it. Okay. فما يدريك إن كان يحمل في جوفه. And how will you know if it carries inside it? What is the maf'ul bihi for يحمل? Because the maf'ul bihi hasn't come yet, right? يحمل في جوفه literally means something, let's say the waves or the ocean, was carrying inside it, and this is the maf'ul bihi. Ad-dur, so I'll give you the word first. Ad-dur wal-jawhar. Now this both will be fatha. This will be fatha because maf'ul bihi, and this will be fatha because it is a tabi'. Right? So it comes after waw. So ma'tuf alay and ma'tuf. So this will be the ma'tuf. Okay. So what does ad-dur wal-jawhar mean?
Precious stone.
Good. Have I included it here? I hope I have. Yes, I have. So dur is pearl in general. Durra, there should be a shadda on the ra. Durra is a pearl. Okay. Ad-dur is like pearl in general. So you can say pearls, but it's not plural. It's more about, pearls in general. right? We call this the genus of a word. And al-jawhar is jewel. Okay, so he's saying, and how will you know if it carries inside it pearls or jewels, right? But this is not in the sense that, like, these are not plural words. These are what we call asma'ul jins, right? Like water does not really have a plural form. You know, you don't say waters, right? Or for example, we say shajar, right? Now shajara is one tree. Ashjar is trees, but shajar also means trees, but it's not talking about a group of plural trees. It means all kinds of trees, the whole genus of trees, right? The whole species of trees. So keep in mind, this thing can be a little confusing when you have the plural form of the word, and then when you have the jins of the word, what we call the jins of the word in Arabic. So he ad-durra wal jawhar is, these are like the jins, these are like all pearls, all kinds of pearls, right? And all kinds of jewels. So he's saying here, you're not sure if it carries inside it pearls and jewels, or al-maut al-ahmar. Literally, this means the red death. Okay, so maut means death, and ahmar means red. Well, what do you think this means, the red death? I think I've included here. Al-maut al-ahmar, it's not violet, it should be violent. Violent or bloody death, or a very, very bad death. When al-maut al-ahmar is used in Arabic literature, it means, you know, very gruesome death, right? It's a gruesome death. Maybe the body parts are split, and it's a very, very violent and bad death. Trinary? What's trinary, Veronica? I didn't get that. Trinary is a Red Sea sign of death. I'm not sure if it's related to that. The group of trees before. Oh, okay. Well, that's a new word. So what does that mean? Trinary? Maybe let us know what that means. We learn a new word. Okay, so what's his point here? So basically he's saying like tomorrow is like an ocean, right? Tomorrow is like an ocean. It's wide. It's full of things. Its waves crash. Its waves rise. You know, huge, huge, huge. However, when you know, you're not sure from this thing, are you going to, inside it, does it have pearls and jewels, or does it have a violent death? Usually when someone dives in, and this is once again it's more about the Arab culture of collecting pearls and jewels from oceans, right? That was one of the main occupations before oil was discovered. So basically, you go with the hope of, you know, collecting these pearls, collecting these jewels from underneath the ocean. However, maybe you'll be eaten by you know, by let's say a whale or something like that, or you could maybe die because of a very strong wave. So you're not really sure. You're going there. It's like tomorrow, right? Once again, he's trying to explain what tomorrow is. You're planning all these things. You know, you have high expectations. Everything looks good. You know, the dark cloud is there. You're anticipating rain, and then suddenly it's completely flipped upside down, and it becomes very very bad news. So either you're collecting pearls or jewels, or you come across a very violent death. Okay, so once again, these are all tashbihs, right? Tashbih is very common in the language. It just depends on how much you use it. What's a good work in English that uses a lot of these sorts of languages? Does anyone know? Little, but overall, things. Okay, that's good to know. Greenery. Have you come across a book in English where, you know, when you start reading it, there's a lot of metaphors, comparisons, and I remember I read this book. I forgot what the name was. It was personal memoirs of a person, and you know, I've been studying English since year one, really. You know, at school, at university. But this book, you know, I had to check the dictionary for every second or third word. It was so difficult. The reading was so difficult. He was using words that I had never heard in my life in English. So you can still come across some works like that, even with a language that you think that you're so familiar with. And it just shows you how vast language can be, right? That even when you're so familiar in and out of the language, you can still come across words, across works that you have to check the meanings of the words for every second or third. And this book literally put me like that. It got so frustrating because, you know, you pick up a book with the expectation of reading it without checking the dictionary for every second word. So I stopped it after the first few pages, which is not a good sign. You shouldn't stop. But sometimes you read a book because you just want to enjoy it, and then there are other books where you sit down on a desk with a pen and paper and you take notes, right? So the mood has to be there, and then the intention is different. So with Arabic, for example, uh, with Arabic, it's not something that you can read before going to bed, right? You need to like be full focused and serious about it, obviously, because it's a new language as well. I'm not sure if it was a bad writing, Veronica. I think it was just very, very high level English. Now that's obviously, you could argue, is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's not good for, I guess, the general audience, but maybe his intention wasn't the general audience as well. But it also sometimes, I guess, humbles you in a way, and maybe that's how you improve in language, isn't it? You shouldn't always be comfortable with the things that you know, even if it's your first language, or even if it's a language that you're so familiar or comfortable with. The fact that I was frustrated, or any of us could be frustrated, also shows a bit of lack of, I guess, high aspirations from us, because something is difficult, then you try to understand it as much as possible. So if an Arab person reads this text, not all of them. By Arab, I don't just mean Arab. It could be someone who was born and raised there and studied Arabic as well. Like there's a debate in linguistics now. Can you really use native and non-native speakers anymore? Right? A lot of people don't like using native and non-native because there are a lot of native people that are very poor in their native language. Then there are those who are not native, but they are brilliant in the language. Right? So this distinction between native and non-native is becoming it's becoming challenged, and I sort of agree with it, because especially with Arabic, because with Arabic, especially if you're trying to study it to read texts and so on, you could be much more fluent and proficient in the language than someone who is a native speaker, right? But anyway, my point was, if a native speaker tries to read this text, they will find it very, very difficult. Right? They'll find the text very difficult because it's not something that you read on a daily basis. It's the language and the vocab and so on. It's not very straightforward. Okay, so you guys are many, many steps ahead. Okay, sometimes it's good to jump in the deep end, like in this ocean metaphor that this person was using. sometimes when you start a journey and then you get a taste of how it is towards the end, it gives you a bit of an appreciation as to where you're at, and you have an idea of where you're trying to get at. All right, this is I know someone a few days ago at ISRO, they were trying to learn to build a website, but after a few weeks of doing the class, the person jumped into looking at what is the last step in creating websites, because he just wanted that feeling of knowing how all things connect to each other towards the end. And then he came back and continued from week one, right? So this is somehow something like that. You're just looking towards the end and seeing, how are things on the other side? This is where I'm heading towards, right? So it's as I said, it's a difficult text, but in terms of its sentence structure, in terms of its nahw and sarf, it's not that difficult actually. A lot of the things you will understand, but it's more about the vocab and the language usage that that takes time getting used to, inshallah. Okay, let's read one more passage and then we'll wrap it up. Is there an idiomatic dictionary for Arabic to give us metaphoric meanings? Good question. I can have a look. I don't have anything in mind. But yeah, I can definitely have a look. Okay, so last passage. So here he says, laqad. Now, what does laqad mean? You may have come across before it. Laqad. Anyone recall? Harf al-Tidrak, okay. Yeah, so laqad, right? Laqad or qad, they're both the same thing. Sometimes it comes with lam, which has an extra degree of emphasis, right? So both of these have two meanings. Either is perhaps, like maybe he will do it, or maybe something will happen. And then the other one is emphasis, like you guys said. Emphasis, right? Which is like indeed. That's the meaning, indeed. So when you have a fi'l mudari', when you have a present tense verb after laqad or qad, it means maybe or perhaps. Okay? Present tense. But when you have a past tense verb after laqad or qad, it usually means emphasis. It gives an emphasis meaning. So here we have laqad ghamuda. Okay? It's a new word. Ghamuda. Now what is ghamuda? Is it past or present tense? Is it fi'l madi or mudari'? It's madi, isn't it? Past tense. Ghamuda. So do you think it means perhaps or maybe, or is it an emphasis indeed? It's hasuna yahsunu. Very good. That's a bab. It's an emphasis. It's indeed, right? لقد غمض الغد. So this is the fi'l and this is the fa'il. غمض means, so غمض يغمض غموضا, very common word, means to be ambiguous or mysterious. Right? To be ambiguous or mysterious. In other words, you're not clear. You're not being clear. The ism fa'il for this word is ghamid. Right? Shakhsun ghamid is a mysterious figure, a mysterious person. So you do hear that say bit. لقد غمض الغد. Okay, so far we know that indeed tomorrow has become mysterious, right? Or tomorrow is mysterious or became mysterious. It's difficult to use it strictly in the past tense, and not every past tense will give the meaning of was as well. Should it not be in the pattern of the fa'il? Do you mean here غمض? Fa'il of غمض? Yeah, I mean another way of saying it you could say is الغد. You can use the as a jumla ismiya. You can say الغد غامض. Alright, so you can say it this way as well. Tomorrow is mysterious. But here, so here, because he's continuing it, right? So he's not just stopping here. He's saying, لقد غمض الغد. Indeed, tomorrow has become mysterious. عن العقول. Alright, so I'll give you a literal meaning first. عن العقول, from minds. عقول is the plural of aql. Very common word that you should definitely know. And you probably already do actually. Aql and uqul. So aql means mind and uqul means minds. Okay? So tomorrow has become mysterious from minds, right? So up to here is one jumla fi'liya. So laqad is mabni. It never changes its harakat. It's always going to be laqad. Doesn't matter if it's at the beginning, middle, or whatever, right? It's a mabni word, and its importance is in meaning. So grammar-wise, it doesn't have an impact on any other word. From a grammar point of view, it's not mu'rab, so it will not show any signs of i'rab. It's just a meaning word, right? Laqad. So you can say this is a jumla fi'liya. Ghamuda is the ism, sorry, is a fi'al madi, and then al-ghadu is the fa'il. عن العقول is the muta'alliq, right? Muta'alliq to ghamuda. So this is a full jumla fi'liya. So the meaning that it's trying to convey here is, that tomorrow has become mysterious, or tomorrow has become ambiguous from the minds, right? Is there a better way of expressing that? لقد غمض الغد عن العقول. Tomorrow has become mysterious. Can we say from onlooking minds, or from minds that are trying to, analyze it? So that's the meaning that's trying to convey, right? So the uqul, the aql, which is the human being's mind, is trying to understand it, but tomorrow is becoming more mysterious and mysterious. Okay, so hopefully tomorrow is uncertain for the intellect. Yeah, that's another meaning that you can derive from it. But it's more about becoming, right? So tomorrow has become, or tomorrow became mysterious, right? Tomorrow became mysterious from analyzing minds. Okay. وَدَقَّ, and this is another sentence. دَقَّ يَدِقُّ means, where is it? Yeah. دَقَّ يَدِقُّ دِقَّةً means to be small or little. To be small or little. وَدَقَّ, so that's the fi'al, and then the fa'il is shakh. And that's why it has a dhamma. وَدَقَّ شَخْصُهُ. What does shakh mean? You would have come across it before. So shakh means person, right? Shakh means a person, just a general person. وَدَقَّ شَخْصُهُ عَنِ الْأَنظَارِ. We came across nazar before. يَنظُرُ نَظَرَ, like لِلنَّاظِرِ, right? Nazir is the one who sees. What does anzar mean? What do you think anzar means? Yeah, it's the plural of it's the plural of nazar, right? So nazar. So the verb is nazara yanzuru, nazara yanzuru, which means to look, right? And then the masdar is nazrun, which means the idea of looking, right? Anzar would be the plural of this, nazar and anzar, which means sights, right? The sight of someone. Basically, this concept of seeing is called nazar, and anzar is seeings, the plural. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. So anzar, you can say, yeah, onlooker, I think is a good way of so onlookers, okay, because it has the meaning of looking. So I think that's a good word actually. Anzar is onlookers. So وَدَقَّ شَخْصُهُ, and its person became small in the sight of the onlookers. Does that make sense? So he's saying it's mysterious from the minds, and it's person. So it's comparing tomorrow to a person. وَدَقَّ شَخْصُهُ, and its person became small. If it was, let's say, if it was a person, it's a really tiny person, very hard to figure out, right? Very hard to look. The onlookers are not too clear. You know what this what tomorrow is, or what is it? Like shakhs here, don't think of it as a living thing. It could be like a body. It could be like an object as well. Okay. So anzar is onlookers, uqul, minds. So basically, tomorrow is mysterious for the minds, and it's too little or small for onlookers. That's the overall meaning. Okay, so hatta law. What does hatta mean? You would have come across it before.
Even.
What's that?
Even. Or until.
Even. Until is another meaning as well. So again, hatta has a few meanings, as you can see. Right? So hatta means until. For example, in the Quran it says, Salamun hiya hatta matla'il fajr. So the night is peaceful until the morning time, right? Until Fajr begins or until dawn begins. But hatta also means to the point where, right? Even if, it also means to the point where. I think that's a better way of expressing in this context. To the point where. Hatta law. Okay, you can say even if. That's fine. Okay, I think we should probably stop here. If I start this, then we'll keep on going. Okay, but just keep in mind that hatta law, even if, or to the point where, or to the point that, and we'll incorporate this as well. Law anna. Okay, so let's stop here. Anyone has any questions or comments before we finish? The whole thing? What do you mean the whole thing? Hatta law. Yeah, up to here. Hatta law. Okay, so hatta itself can mean until, but this law gives the meaning of even if. Hatta law. Right? Even if, to the point where, when you incorporate the law as well. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, guys, thanks for attending. I'll stop the recording here and we'll see you next week. وإياكم and السلام عليكم. Have a good weekend.
إلى اللقاء.
إلى اللقاء. مع السلامة.